fortune to work for Gus Heningburg in the early days. Reflecting on Gus as a boss and working with Gus was quite an adventure, let me say. So I've been working on trying to cull it down to 3 minutes and pick out those experiences that I could share with you. It has given me a headache. There's so many stories I could tell you, and I don't have the time. Okay, so I want to say this. I want to do this as background, particularly for you. Your dad and your granddad, are there any greats yet or none yet? Okay. Oh, sorry. Okay. He was raised in an extraordinary environment. Your great-grandparents were extraordinary people, extraordinary. And I had a particular affiliation or affection for your granddad and your great-granddad. Dr. H was it as far as I was concerned. And he talked about having built a school in Africa. This is a background to give you an idea of where Gus came from. When his father said he built a school in Africa, he meant he created the curriculum, he recruited the teachers, he trained the teachers, and he physically built the school. That's what he meant. So with that as a background, Gus really functioned in an environment where the extraordinary was actually ordinary for him. So what we saw as extreme achievement was what his expectation was. Trust me, it wasn't easy working for him. Well, my Dr. Heningburg story. I thought Dr. Heningburg was just fabulous. He was fabulous. He was extraordinary. And one day he had called Gus, and Gus was on a conference call, and he knew that I thought he was extraordinary and wanted to be the daughter person. And so he called Gus, and Gus was busy. So Annie hooked him over to me, and I chatted with him. And I don't remember what we talked about. We talked, and Gus was finally off of his conference call. And so she came on our call and said, Dr. Heningburg, Gus is available, so went to Gus. And the light went off, and I went on and did some work. And about 10, 15 minutes later, Gus comes out of his office, walks in my office and says, "And why did my father call you first?" And the sibling rivalry was on, trust me, it was on. You may or may not know that Gus was in Army intelligence, and I think that experience for him really outlined how he was going to move through situations and how he addressed situations. So he always had information. Someone mentioned that. He did his homework, so he knew who he was dealing with. And one of my first assignments was to go up to Rutgers, where the Rutgers students were sitting in and protesting. Of course, in my day, we were trying to get food when we sat in. They had sequestered themselves in the administration building without food. So something of a switch there. They didn't get it right. So he said, go up and find out what they need and get it for them. So I went up, and they said they wanted sandwiches. You'll know this, Joe and Marvin, and it was a time. And so I brought them back the sandwiches and sodas, not knowing that what Gus had assigned me to do was going to be a lifelong commitment to feeding those college students. Even when they got out of college, they thought I was supposed to feed them. Another one that he gave me, another assignment that Gus gave me was to do the logistics for the Love Festival. Many of you will not remember that, but shortly after the Newark riots, Gus conceived this huge concert in Weequahic Park, and everybody said, don't do it, don't do it, don't put all those mad people together in one place. I don't care if you are playing music, don't do it, don't do it. He said, I have faith. I believe. I have faith. So I had to go get the piano and the sound and the other stuff. But he had this vision. Sure enough, he was right. It was the time for Newark to come together. They knew that it was the opportune time to show that Newark had grown, that Newark was capable of carrying itself appropriately. And so there was not one conflict. I think we lost one baby, and the Red Cross had to give out one bandage. No violence, no mugging, no anything. It was indeed a love festival, and very pivotal in how Newark started its ascendancy and sort of out of the bad image that it had. Now, the very last story I'm going to tell you is about Gus's people management skills. So he knew people. And he certainly knew me, and I'm going to tell you this story. One day, he goes past my office. I had a glass partition in my office, so I saw everything that went on in the office. So he goes past with this guy, tall, dark, and extraordinarily handsome. And I'm looking, I'm doing my work, but you know I'm looking. And he, about 2 minutes, wasn't more than 2 minutes, he comes back out with the man, brings him into my office, and he says, I told Vernon Jordan that if I didn't introduce him to you, I would get no work done for a week. And I said, more like 2 weeks. Gus Heningburg had an extraordinary knowledge of people.